All right, we are live. It's Tuesday, and if it's Tuesday, that can mean only one thing. It is time for Comic Book School Live. This is the show where we talk about the craft and business of making comics. My name is Buddy Scalera, and I am your host, and we will be talking about comic books, how they're made, and how you can make your comic books even better. But speaking of even better, I want to welcome my co-host, three-time Emmy Award-winning Mike Fasolo. Mike, I got to tell you, really invest in the background behind you. like you, that background just says I'm ready to be live.
I should put up, posters or something, but I was in my wife's office, and now that she's back in there, I'm back here in the prison. So.
back there. That is very stark, is it not?
Yes, it is. Oh, good night, Andrew.
Andrew dialing in from. Is he New Zealand or Australia? Because
Australia.
Is that the same country? Is it one country? Is
Basically, it's not that far apart.
Yeah, and our guest tonight is from.
Yes.
I put it on. I dressed in the dark. This is the only thing that I could see was this shirt. Does Mike need to post bail?
Yes, he does.
Typically.
Yes, he does.
And so, Mike, our guests are from all over the globe, from countries that I don't know, United States may purchase. We don't know. There's weirdness in the air. We don't really know. But we're very excited. We're going to be doing a complete breakdown of a comic book. So let's not waste any more time. Please welcome. Greg's here. Thank you, Greg. We're glad you're here. Thank you for sharing. Excellent. Please welcome to the stage Duane Murray and Ahmed Raafat.
Hi, everyone.
Hold on. Let's do a bigger cheer. Oh, guys, thanks so much for waiting patiently backstage. We know you're dialing in from foreign countries and far off lands. Duane, where are you dialing in from?
Hamilton, Ontario. It's like we like to call it the Brooklyn of Toronto is what we like to call our little city here.
I like it. That sounds good. And Ahmed, you are dialing in from a different time zone. Where are you dialing in from?
Dialing in from the UK. So it's 1 a.m. 5+1 here right now.
So if you doze off at some point during this, we'll alert you and.
I came prepared. I had 3 coffees and I had a nap, so hopefully I'm going to be alert for the whole thing.
But he's got a little bell thing. He can ring it and wake you up.
Wake you up. Now, just as a point of reference, though, you originally hail from Egypt.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm from Egypt. I've moved here about 9 years ago, and have been living here since then. My wife is half British, half Egyptian, so we lived there for some time, and then we decided to move here, try things out here.
Well, hello from Tokyo.
Wow,
Mike, that's the first.
Sharif is a friend of mine from.
That's our first Tokyo guest, fan. So, Duane and Ahmed, thank you for bringing in fans from Tokyo. That's our first Tokyo fan.
Sharif is a lifelong friend of mine, and also he's an artist as well from Egypt who's currently living in Japan. And he started like publishing comics in Egypt about a year and a half before me, so it kind of was an inspiration for me to follow through with this whole crazy being a comic book artist idea. So yeah, he's a very dear friend.
Well, Sharif, it's a pleasure to meet you, and hopefully we'll have you on the show one day soon. But first, let's get into the educational portion of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be going from script to art. And first, let's just get started. Our co-host is Mike Fasolo, the 3-time Emmy Award-winning, 2-time Annie Award-winning screenwriter and occasional comic book writer. Mike also hails from some of the same origin story as me, Wizard, Toy Fair, Inquest, and all the other fun stuff. You see how I updated the graphics tonight, Mike?
I do. That's nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I did a little bit of a little bit of extra PowerPoint. My own shirt woke me up. So, and then I am a comic book writer, also from Wizard, the original online editor for wizardworld.com. I've published photo reference and educational materials, written for lots of publishing companies. But we're not really here to talk about me and Mike. We're here to talk about our guests. So let's get started with that. Mike, shall we jump in? Please welcome, let's do another round of applause, Duane Murray, who, so Duane, according to your bio, so I see that you've written, this is your second series. First series was a graphic novel called Better Place. This new series is Power Pals. But Duane was downplaying a little bit backstage his Hollywood experience as a scriptwriter, screenwriter, script doctor, actor. I looked you up on IMDb, Duane. You can't hide. You're Hollywood to the core.
I don't know who that guy is. Look at he's so serious.
Well, that guy's going to be cast in the NSA in some sort of CIA role, I understand. So he's you look very serious. Like you could wrestle Mike to the ground and beat him up.
I don't know how big Mike is, but I'm more of a pacifist. So he'd probably just yell at me and I'd curl up in a ball probably.
Mike, how did you describe yourself when you were out dating? Specifically, the two words you described yourself as?
Thin and flimsy.
Thin and flimsy. So, so you don't have to worry about Mike. Mike is easy to beat in a fight. But Duane, this is interesting because you come to writing from the Hollywood side. We're seeing more of that. We're seeing a lot of creators who've got that background and experience in visual storytelling, bringing it right here to the comic book page. And we're going to break that down a little bit tonight, but let's not waste any additional time because we also want to welcome Ahmed Raafat. Did I say that right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So Ahmed is, he's got this amazing pop culture design sense. I don't know how well you can see it here on the screen, but he did some work for Dark Horse on Quick Stops. I think that's the Kevin Smith project, right, Ahmed? Yep. El Asaba, which was loosely translates into The League, right? That's something that you drew.
Yeah, that's my first comic book work. It's an Egyptian comic book with Egyptian superheroes, and this is how I started basically doing this series.
Are comic books big in Egypt?
Sorry?
Are comic books popular in Egypt?
They are, but not necessarily mainstream American comic books. Obviously, things like Superman and Batman and Spider-Man are very popular because of the movies and the Batman TV show, and this it's been there for generations. But for instance, the Image stuff and the other indie stuff is not as popular. Also, European comics are quite popular in Egypt as well. Frank Wedge and stuff. So your Tintins and all that. It's not as popular as it is, I'd say, in America or in the UK, but there is a comic book scene over there.
I should probably clarify. Are my comic books very popular in Egypt? Because I don't really.
If you've done anything for DC and Marvel, then probably yes. Anything else?
Good. That's really all I need to know. What about Robot Chicken? Do you know Robot Chicken?
Yeah, I used to watch Robot Chicken a lot, actually.
There you go, Mike. You just got a royalty check.
Foreign licensing.
That would be nice.
And then the comic book that I thought should have been around when I was 12. Diary of the Astro Nudes. This is
tame. Yeah, I mean the name makes it sound like something else, but this is a pretty tame comic book. Well, this was my first experiment as a writer as well, and it's a like I said, it's throwback to 60s B movies and not amazing fantasy, strange tales kind of comic books, and also for those who know it, nudist scam films from the 60s. So it's about people from another Earth that come to ours, and on this Earth, clothes don't exist basically. So they come to kind of our Earth, circa 1950s, 1960s, and it's just about the misadventures, how we perceive the human body and nudity and all that from
Well,
an
I
outside point
can't
of
help
view.
but notice how much the main nude character looks like Mike Fasolo, a young Mike Fasolo.
I just need the little.
Yeah, you right. You know,
Yeah.
you really. I got to tell you, it kind of looks a little bit like you, Mike. But let's get into this. So, coming soon in March is Who Are the Power Pals? Duane, you wrote this. Ahmed, you drew this, and Rob Jones, who was nice enough to retweet us a few times online, was the letterer. But Duane, why don't you give us the what do we call this in Hollywood? The high concept, or what?
Oh,
What is
the,
it?
the elevator
The elevator pitch.
The
Yeah.
elevator pitch. Okay, see, that's how far from. I'm in the Brooklyn of New Jersey, so I don't really know the Hollywood
exactly.
term.
Which makes you Staten Island.
Yeah.
So this is a story about two former teen stars who miss their brief brush with fame, and they see people getting fame just from being online and doing things. So they decide to put on their old costumes and go out to fight crimes. But when they realize they're not getting much crime going on, one of them decides to stage some crimes, and in doing so, he actually ends up foiling international arm dealers' deal, and so now that dealer wants to kill them.
Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, all the time.
Is this
I have,
roughly
like,
based
4
on your
hit
life?
In Hollywood.
Based on Duane's real life experience.
It's actual life.
Exactly.
All right. Well, it sounds like a hoot, and you know, the pages that we saw were pretty funny, and we're excited to dive into it. So what we're going to do here is we pick up. We'll be exploring 13, 14, and 15. There's no spoilers here for those of you who are watching along, but Duane, set up the scene. Tell us what's going on, and then break down the structure of your 6 panels, and then we're going to show the roughs that Ahmed created for this.
So just to sort of set the scene, just before this, Derek, who is the guy in the blue costume, comes up with the idea that he was just on Grauman Theater, seeing all the people in their costumes, getting tips for taking pictures with all the tourists and stuff. So he decides for him and Alex to put on their costumes and go around and see if they can make some tips. In doing so, Alex hears someone calling for help, because I don't know if you guys know this area. It can get a little aggressive. And,
yeah.
Yeah, the costume characters can get a bit aggressive with the demanding of the money and all that. And so Alex goes to help these people, and they end up in a giant fight with these people, an actual physical altercation, which gets recorded, and which is the beginning of launching these two into their viral fame. So this is just when Alex arrives on the scene to witness these other two costume characters badgering some people for tip money. That's where it starts.
Okay, so we see here Alex is on the scene. Panel 1, panel 2, there's a confrontation. A super guy, I guess, is a costume cosplayer, enters the fray. Panel 4, there's a. I sometimes do this and acknowledge that you don't always put in your specific panel description. You just let the artist say, like, here's the charge of the scene, or here's the dialogue. Derek enters the scene, and then there's a 2-shot super guy and Bat Guy. Their costumes are close to the real thing with some changes, and not so nice. So that is our setup. As we move in, Ahmed, you're interpreting this. Now I know it's a little bit light. Talk about your approach to setting up this page and deciding how you're going to structure this.
So a bit of history about these pages specifically. These were the pages that me and Duane used for our pitch.
Can you lean forward a little bit?
Yeah. So I was saying a bit of history about these pages specifically. These were the pages that me and Duane used for our pitch for Dark Horse. So I kind of had these drawn already, like 2 years before I started working on the book. But they were, I think there were 6 pages, and we decided to condense them into 3 pages for this sequence. Now that we had the whole like the book got the green light, and we had a whole book to put other things in. Um, for my, I mean, I had drawn these in the past, but I had to kind of reinterpret the script again for the pages that were going into the actual issue. And yeah, the blue pencil. It's funny about the blue pencil thing. I've worked digitally most of my life, but for some reason I always go to blue when I am penciling or sketching. Started off as trying to stick to the industry standard, but just got used to it because it's light and it's easy on the eye when I'm penciling. So yeah, the blue pencil is there to stay. Um, so for me, I just like if we take the first panel for instance and see how I interpreted that into sketch. The confrontation is the main like the center stage of the panel, and Alex is coming in from one side to and seeing all of this. So I kind of wanted Alex to be on the side, obviously bigger than the rest of the scene because he's approaching and kind of wanted his eyesight to go to the main thing happening in the panel. Um, for the second one, bad guy was saying that these suits cost money, so I wanted him to like when you're drawing a comic book, I personally tend to exaggerate the actions and the expressions of the characters to show what's happening even without reading the text because the person who's reading sees the image first and kind of forms a first impression in their mind before they read what's actually happening. So I wanted to be like, these suits cost a lot of money, like gangster kind of way, mafia kind of way, these suits cost a lot of money, but that's the cost price. So that's why I was drawing him like pulling the suit and like saying they cost money and uh, so and then panel 3, super guy comes in. So now it's the three of them, and again I wanted to frame Alex in between these two guys who are a little bit bigger because I wanted them to look intimidating to Alex, and then we zoom in on Alex a little bit, and then Derek enters the panel. In my mind, I was playing it like a comedy film, so like Derek kind of slides into the panel as opposed to him like showing him approaching or anything. It just pops in suddenly into the frame, and then the last one is just both of them explaining. Like it's the last panel was a bit dialogue heavy, so it's just like them talking to them. Uh, so yeah, that was like when I read the script, I kind of try to imagine it as like a movie or a show or something in my mind, like just to the sequence of things, and then I put that on the page.
Sounds good. All right, now we jump forward to 14. Duane, pick up and lead us through the page.
Yeah, so this is you sort of mentioned it before. I tend to unless I feel I need something to be very specific, I tend to write lightly in stage direction. That comes from screenwriting, and that I work with actors. I coach a lot of actors, and one of the first things I do when they get a script is I tell them to cross out all the stage directions. And I tell them because a lot of writers tend to try to direct actors in their screen directions, and they'll say she starts to cry. And I always tell actors, no, work from primary places. If you play the cry, you're going to play a result, and what you want to do is play the emotion of the moment. Maybe you'll cry, maybe you won't, but it'll be more real to the moment. It'll be more spontaneous. I like to do the same thing here. I like to be as sparse as possible. Let the artists do what they do, and then often I'm quite surprised because it's never what I pictured, but it's always either better or just more true to the artist. That's what matters to me. Is otherwise, I've seen scripts where people will direct an artist right down to the finger positions. It's like, well, what's the point? So part of why I love doing this is the close collaboration with the artist. And so in doing so, I want to see whatever the artist does. And unless I think it's either wrong or it doesn't work or it's such a specific beat, I tend to just I'll adjust my dialogue after seeing what the artist has done, because that's to me is more important. It's more true to the moment. So this is
Mike,
just,
is this making sense to you? Because you're also a screenwriter. Do you
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that even I've fallen into, of just, oh, I'm going to direct exactly how this scene should be, when you should just be like, give it to them basics and let them, take control of it.
yeah, because another thing, if you as if you've directed before, if you've worked with directors before, another thing a director hates is for them for the writer to tell them where the camera is, or to tell us like, we see this or we see this, and a lot of directors I've worked with was like, well, I'm gonna show you what we see. Like, don't tell me what we see. I'm gonna decide what we see based on the scene you present to me. And I try to do that same as well. I try not to do camera directions that I see in a lot of comic scripts. I try not to do that, because I want the artist to bring their voice, and they're basically acting like a DOP and bringing their eye and their voice to the moment as well. So it's a true collaboration.
Well, there you go. I was going to ask for beginner writers, how much detail is too much or too little? I'm going to answer this first. I would say you got to put in what you need, right? There's times where I will write the finger position if that's important. And then there's times where I'm just like, here's what happens on the page.
Yeah. I think it depends on the scene. It depends on the importance to you. It depends on your collaboration. Like, there's some artists who want more of that. They want to be directed more, and others don't. And I just think, I think eventually in the collaboration, you end up finding your groove, and you end up finding out what you need and don't need the longer you go.
Mike, real quick aside, forgetting that we have guests on the show, do you write all the description out when you write Robot Chicken? Do you like super detailed exactly what happens, or you just
only if it's absolutely necessary? Like, you don't get into like, oh, there's 35 people in this in this scene, and they all have this kind of shirt on or this kind of thing, and it's just, oh, there's people on the street, and then you let the animators and the producers or whoever behind the scene, they go, okay, we can have this many people in, or the director goes, oh no, put some more people in, or whatever they choose to do.
Oh, see that? I just learned something about Mike that I didn't know. So okay, so we've set up the scene here, 14. We don't have to go into quite as much detail, Ahmed, but just tell us how you approach this page. Oh wait, I think this is a question for you, Ahmed.
Yes. How long would it take you to draw a page? Do you do thumbnail rough drawings before getting into the final drawing?
Well, these when I first started out, it maybe took a week to draw a page, but these days I think it's 1 day or less than a day to pencil a page, depending on how big the page is. And again, like maximum 1 day to ink a page. Like if there's something with a big background and a like crowd scene or something, it might take a bit longer, but that's the average. So yeah, 1 day, less than a day. But when I first started out, it took much longer than that. So that's spend like.
Ahmed, if it makes you feel any better, it takes me about 15 minutes to write a page. So I don't know if that means anything.
It'd probably take me about a day to draw some stick figures on the page.
Yeah, it would. All right, so Ahmed, we don't want to go into quite as much detail. Just tell us about how you block the page, because I do notice that you've done some creative panel layout here.
Yeah, well, that was the second part of the question, just before I go into that.
Sure.
Whether I rough before I do the roughs first. So the way Duane and I were working, and the way I work in general, I do the thumbnails or the rough drawing, and then I send it to Duane, and then gets approved, and then I do the pencils, which is a more detailed version of that, and then I send it to Duane, and he approves it, and then the inks and then the colors. So I stuck with the roughs always, yeah. Even when I'm doing my own stuff, I always rough everything before I start going into the details, just to make sure everything is there. For this one, I think I was pretty much following the script. For the first panel, for instance, I wanted a high angle just to make it look like we're eavesdropping on the conversation. So that's the thing that I've added there. I also wanted to show the stars on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood. I think the one thing that I kind of like, it was in the script, flips him into the ground, but I wanted to have a bit of slapstick into the fourth panel, so he just doesn't throw him on the ground. He kind of like flies and lands way further, which is not what will happen in real life. But I wanted like a humorous beat in the page somewhere. Uh, but uh, but yeah, like this, and this was the main part of the page for me. Like, this was the big panel that I wanted to put in the middle of the page. Everything else is around it. Usually, when I'm doing a page, I try to figure out which panel is the main, like the money shot in the page, and I try to. This is probably the biggest panel, or the one that's gonna get the most attention, and then I kind of build around it to complete everything.
Well, traditional.
This is actually all, it's all Photoshop. None of this is traditional, actually. So it is all Photoshop. I've been working digitally for most of my career.
Yeah, because I think you're going to start to show some of that. We have more images. So Balfour, whatever the name. What's that name there, Mike?
Balfigor.
Balfigor. We will get a little bit more into it. Last page that we'll be showing. Duane, take us through it.
So this is when they get they are getting the attention that they have been longing for so long for doing this thing, and it's original. So the bigger arc thing too. Derek is the one that wants fame. Alex wants to help people, and so as you guys again are writers, the more Derek chases fame, the more we punish Derek. We get him beat up, we embarrass him, we do all the things, and then Alex, by doing the right thing and helping people, is actually going to be the one getting the attention, even though he's the one that doesn't want it. We as writers know these things, the two opposites, wanting the same thing but for different reasons. That's the thing you often want to do with a dual protagonist thing. They need to be going towards the same goal, but if you want any conflict in your story, they've got to be doing it for different reasons. So that's basically where this ends up. Is Derek's the one that got him into this situation, wanting fame by doing this one thing. Alex ends up helping people and therefore attracting fame to himself. And the very end of this page is one of the kid wanting a selfie with Alex, and Derek squeezing into the shot in the last minute.
Now, one of the things that I thought was a cute touch was noting the emojis. You want to just talk about what you wanted to impart so that Ahmed was able to illustrate the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because this is a story I had a long time ago, and before social media was a thing. And so when revisiting, I had to sort of get into that thing, and I wanted to use that. Part of why I loved Ahmed's work in Astro Nudes is the different styles that he used. And I knew, same with Rob with lettering, I knew that I was going to want to explore things shot on a cell phone, things shot on a security camera, things displayed on a TV screen, using social media and all these things. And that's why part of the reason I liked Ahmed and the sort of various things he did, because I was going to explore all those things. Yeah, I wanted an artist who could do that all, and I knew I was going to be doing that. And so this is the scene where I wanted to get into the cell phone and be like, okay, let's see that this is actually gaining attention. This is the beginning of them starting to get the fame, and that comes with little emojis coming up on the cell phone to let them know that the attention is starting to come to them, whether they want it or not.
Now, it's hard to see here, but and we'll see it once we get into the pencils. Right, Ahmed, you've got this weird. This must have been a tough shot to do, right? There's a lot of foreshortening and the angle that you have to choose. What was the challenge here in making sure that you were able to capture this moment?
I had my kid pose for this, to be honest. I took a reference for it. I use reference. Well, I mean, a lot. I've been using it less now, but I use reference every now and then in my work. So I wanted like the classic selfie shots, somebody taking a selfie. And it is a tricky angle, I know, but I don't think it would work otherwise. You need this kind of high angle with Alex with the phone raised up and taking a selfie, and showing him kneeling down to stand next to the kid. So I wanted this kind of energy in this panel, and yeah, I had my kid pose for it. So I told him, we're gonna pose for a couple of shots. There's a kid in this comic, and I need you to help me.
Will he get residual? Does he get a residuals check? And
Is he in there? Yeah, gets a royalty for that.
Yeah, why not?
So Balfigor asked a question, Mike. Want to read that out?
Do you collect art reference for locations, and if so, what part of the process do you gather those?
I'll start because as mentioned, I've spent some time in LA, and there are specific locations that I had in mind. One of them is a place called the Highland Gardens, and the Highland Gardens is a famous little hotel where all the Canadians go for pilot season. They even made a show about it called the Highland Gardens, I think. And so I sent Ahmed, and that's where these two live. It's a hotel, and I met like Los Angelinos who lived in this hotel year round. Like it was their place. And so that's where these two. That's where I put these two. I was like, these two actually live in this place. So I initially did send Ahmed photo references of where this place is, and then from there, I don't know if he did much of his own sort of Google mapping, but.
Yeah. Well, first of all, reference. I usually gather all reference at the rough sketch process. So I go in, I find out what kind of reference I need for everything, whether it's location or anatomy or anything like that, and then I gather that in the rough sketching phase, so that when I'm penciling, I already have whatever I need or most of what I need there. As for the location highlights, what I did is I took the reference that you sent me. I looked up a couple of extra references on Google Maps and Google generally, and then I use SketchUp for building models for locations. So for instance, I have a model for the Power Pals apartment that I've built that I've been using throughout the 4 issues, just in case, to make sure to get everything right in the right place from different angles. And I kind of had a quick exterior model for Highlands, so I cobbled together something that looks pretty close to the reference that you sent me, and I've been using that. So for locations, it depends on how repetitive the location is. So if it's like something for one panel, more reference is always the right answer.
And I will tell you, Ahmed, the names that are popping up, we know them all to be. They're all working artists, actually.
Yeah,
Burnett's a working artist, so they speak from they speak from experience as well. So they're your peers.
The software I use is SketchUp. It's free. It's been very helpful with buildings and cars and like guns and things like that. So you can have a model of a car, flip it around to look at it from any different angle, and it kind of helps with consistency as well, because when you're drawing 4 issues and a lot of the scenes take place in an apartment, you don't want to spend a lot of time thinking, is the couch too close to the TV or too far, or you just want something that's kind of there to make it easy to be able to draw all these things. So 3D saves an immense amount of time. Yes, it does.
Yeah, a lot of people are using the SketchUps, and it's a free tool. We should do an episode on that one day, Mike, because I think a lot of artists are leveraging that. All right, so let's move in here. So now we have the 3 sketch pages, which are making my eyes vibrate. So I'm going to just jump right into the first pass. These are your pencils, and are you're doing these pencils on boards right now, Ahmed, or have you switched to digital at this point?
No, everything is digital. Even the rough sketches is digital.
Oh, even okay. The roughs were okay. And what are you working in? Like Procreate? What are you using?
Photoshop.
Your photo. Wow, that's honestly, I didn't think a lot of people drew in Photoshop. That's a big commitment.
Because I've been using it for a couple of years now. I know Procreate. A lot of people are saying Procreate is much more efficient, but I just need to find the time to, because switching to a completely different program to draw, I'm gonna take a little bit of time to learn to navigate around it, and I haven't found the time yet. So for the time being, I'm just sticking with what I know. But I know Photoshop is not the most efficient for, I mean, maybe for the coloring and effects it is, but for the early stages of making a page, everyone's saying Procreate is the best. So I'm just waiting for the right time to give it a shot.
Yeah. Now, so you've seen the sketches, Duane. Are you now getting the what we would consider, these are pretty tight pencils. I mean, we say loose pencils, but these are pretty tight pencils. Are you getting it at this stage?
Yeah. Ahmed gives me every stage. To be honest, once the layouts are approved, I usually don't have much to say again until colors and letters. To be honest, unless there's something, and even I sometimes won't even catch a thing that I'll notice in pencils or inks until it's colored or lettered. So yeah, he sends me these. I generally go, yep. Then go on to the next thing. But this is the stage that if we catch something a little more major, that we want to address it now, so we're not too far down the line and all of a sudden I come up with this new crazy idea. Once we're here, I feel like we're pretty locked.
Ahmed, your friend Sharif is recommending Clip Studio.
Yeah, I actually meant to say Clip Studio, not Procreate, because I don't think Procreate I don't think there's a version for like a laptop and Wacom. We can use it on the iPads, which I don't use right now. But yeah, I meant Clip Studio as
wow, Burnett. Look at Burnett taking a stand on this. Mike, read this one out. I mean, I feel like this is like a challenge.
Use your swimming skills to ride a motorcycle using Procreate Photoshop. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Burnett is really coming on. Which program's free? That's what I want to know, Andrew. That's the more important thing.
That last page, yeah.
I think, I mean, Ahmed always allows them to be possible. But like I said, I would rather, as long as it's nothing major, I would rather adjust my dialogue in lettering than make a change to the art. As long as it works for the story and it works for positioning of the character. The only thing I may occasionally do is say, you know what, can we switch these two characters' positions, literally just to make the letterer's life easier, because this person's speaking first. It makes no sense for this person to speak first. So I'll occasionally ask Ahmed to flip characters, but that's, at this stage, that's usually the biggest thing I'll ask for.
Yeah, typically it's not a good time to do the rewriting at that point.
I personally, as an artist, I don't mind rewrites in the pencil stage, because still that's not the final product that people are going to be reading. So even if I have to repencil something, but do it like in a sketchier way or not as detailed, it doesn't really make a difference. But once I get to the ink stage, if I have to change something in a panel, that's where I'm like, let's try to make the changes minor, because otherwise I'm gonna have to re-ink the whole panel again. I'm not gonna just be able to it's gonna look weird if I just cut a bit of the panel and like draw a completely new thing. But I mean, they've happened before, not necessarily with power panels, but things. I'm generally flexible. Like, I'm not the kind of person to say no, I'm not changing it. It is the way it is. Because at the end of the day, it's a collaborative effort, and as long as as long as the writer can sell me on the change, and I can see that it's going to make the page more effective, or make the beat clearer, I don't mind.
Yeah, but let's be clear to the writers out there. If you're making changes at this stage, you're probably not getting a lot of repeat work in the same editor. Yeah. You know what I mean? Ahmed's being chill about it, but it's a pretty good chance that the editor's like, I'm not sure we're going forward. Now, what next on this, I love how this pops. This is when you move into inks. You can really see the richness of the work. Once again, you're bringing this up in Photoshop, right, Ahmed? Are you at this point making some changes to your pencils as you're pulling in your inks?
I don't usually make changes unless while I'm inking, I notice that something is not working. So, like, this hand is not as tight, or the grip doesn't look as right as it did when I was drawing, or when I was doing the pencils, or maybe this face looks a little bit off, so maybe I'll change it. But and once I get to the pencils, I usually the inks are more or less the same. Obviously, things like the thickness of the lines and all that. That's where the inks come in. The how fine the lines are, how thick the lines are. Uh, but in terms of the art itself, it more or less stays the same.
You
Yeah.
gotta pull the image up, bud.
Was that Bep?
You gotta pull the image up.
Oh, I'm looking at it. I'm like, this looks great.
There we go.
I'm like, this looks great. What do you guys think? Oh, okay. So it was a moment for me. Yeah. Poking pins into a little off the quick revision stage. Yeah, it's never, especially when it was we used to be on boards. What I liked was your bold choice of silhouette here. I thought that was good. Like the economy of storytelling really drew the eye to the moment, right? Duane, you probably felt like you really nailed it here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is an example of one of those pages that's actually been altered from when we originally did it. I actually originally had him putting in this armbar as sort of 3 separate panels. Like I wanted to see the motion of the move, but we do another thing in a later issue where I satisfy that itch, where we do a thing. We basically do a couple of pages in the style of step-by-step Taekwondo pages out of a book from the 70s of like, here's how you take down this person. And I was putting a bit too much of that throughout when it really just pops in that one spot. So yeah, this I learned a term that I'd never heard before, where Brett, who's our editor at Dark Horse, and I brought up another thing. It wasn't for this. It was these henchmen getting back into a car, and I mentioned I said, do we not need to see that? Like I feel like we need to see them getting in the car. And Brett said the term, no, it's in the gutters. And I just agreed, like I knew what he was saying.
Well, the gutters, yeah.
And then I went to my friends, like, what is that? I don't know what that means. And now that I know that it happens between the panels, that we assume this happens. So this, I think, to me, is a really good example of it being in the gutters, that if we just get to the key moves that matter to get to the point, which is now he has them in an armbar.
Well, we thank Brett for helping that. Real quick, looks like another question here for you, Ahmed. Mike, you want to read it?
Do you redraw your pages for the inks, not just darken your pencils?
No, I go over them, or as Kevin Smith calls it, I trace over them.
Yeah. You're a tracer.
She's a tracer.
So I go. I know I don't darken. Again, it has to do with because when I'm penciling, I'm not paying attention to the thickness of the lines, or I like to go over them with the inks just to make sure that I make it tighter. Basically, it might look tight on the screen right now, but if you zoom in, it's not like, I mean, the inks are tight. They're supposed to be tight. But I mean, the pencils, once you zoom in, some places might not be as tight as they should be. So I go over everything with inks. Yeah.
And then I really had to call this out. This was that pose that would require, quite a lot of thinking, right, Ahmed? I mean, the angle to capture that, you make it look simple, but that is a very tricky panel.
Mm-hmm. I also love this. Part of the reason I love his work too is just even the flash of the phone breaking into the panel above. Like that's the kind of stuff that I like to see. I don't like to necessarily just see 9-panel grid throughout everything. I like that as a starting point, but I love how Ahmed twists panels and has panels bleed into together. I just love that stuff.
Let's just talk about Ahmed. Let's not let him.
Yeah.
It looks like Sharif, your friend has a question for you.
The stage that takes the most mental effort is definitely the roughs, because you kind of have to translate 28 pages, or the script, whatever the length of the script is, into thumbnails in a rather short period of time. Because usually, if you look at any schedule for a comic book project, the thumbnails stage takes a week maybe. So you have to, in a week, break down 28 pages into 28 pages, basically, to 28 pages of script into 28 pages of art, basically. So that's the stage that's, I'm always just staring at the ceiling during this week, like thinking, how are we going to do this? What angles are we going to use? So, which way am I going to approach the page? So that's the one that takes the most mental effort. The most stressful is the inks, because that's the thing that the people are going to see. When I'm penciling, I don't care. No one's going to see that. But the inking is the one that stresses me out the most, because that's the final thing that people are going to see in print. So it needs to be like super tight and pristine.
Well, we
So,
certainly appreciate that you shared the behind the scenes of this. Yeah, Andrew Andrew, I am with you. It's so much easier, isn't it? It's like
you do some typing and you send it off.
Job is so much easier. Okay, now I believe, do you do the colors on this as well, Ahmed?
I did the colors for this one, yeah. Power Pals is probably the first full series I colored, because Quick Stops was in black and white, so that was easy. And projects before that, Astronauts was retro coloring, so I was using a very limited palette that was being used in the 50s and 60s. I actually downloaded the palette, and it's like 32 colors. So it was like, this is red, this is brown, this is blue. It was pretty easy. This is the first one that I've colored that, with no color restrictions, and it was a little bit. I think I got the hang of it now, but in the beginning it was a little bit challenging to, what color should I go with, and what kind of mood do I want to establish in this page. So yeah.
And then you can't help but notice that, like, this is when you start to really see the stars in the background and notice, the placement of the scene, and then that all important reference, Duane, that you were talking about, that brings some truth to the scene. And also the way you don't need it in the white, right? Like you really you make this pop by removing the color. It was this part of your strategy, Ahmed?
Yeah, again, like this panel specifically was the centerpiece of this page, so I wanted it to stand out in the page, around everything else. So that's why I've decided, just, I don't want any background, I don't need anything. I just need the focus to be on these two characters and what's happening in this panel.
And then, Duane, does this, you're a filmmaker, TV maker, the muted palette, does this capture what you were going for? Or how does this complement what you saw in your head?
It's actually specifically what I asked for. I asked Ahmed if he'd color it. He mentioned he wasn't sure, but I loved his colors, and the reason I loved his colors, even on something like Astronauts, was I wanted flat colors. I was very inspired by Four Kids Walk Into a Bank by Tyler Boss, who I think is brilliant, and he actually did one of the covers for our book. And Tyler's colors are very flat, and I really liked the way that looked, and it really brought a character to that book that I felt sort of thematically I was going after the same thing in terms of comedy hijinks and with some heart. And yeah, so and that's all I said. I said I like flat colors. I didn't know what that meant for someone who actually had to do the work. Like you said, as a writer, we like, this.
It made it easier for me because
yeah, you're like 1,000 orcs attack the castle. Actually, make it 1,000 monkeys attack the castle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What?
Yeah. And just from a storytelling perspective, one of the things that we know is that it often humor works better because his blacks are so well crafted. Agreed. I mean, the blacks are so definitive, but also, as a reader, my attention isn't about the layers of color. Mm-hmm. It is that takes away, for humors, it's about the beats and the reactions and the body language, and the flatter colors draw your eye to that.
Mm-hmm.
I personally like flat colors, even when I'm doing fan art or something that's not related to Power Pals. I usually use flat colors with a little bit of lighting, nothing too
I noticed that all three of you have like similar muted backgrounds and are practical. Mike, you're practically monochromatic tonight.
It's true, yeah, with the gray sweater. You just
Yeah,
like
you got
grayscale.
the Snuggie on.
Yeah, you're basically
Yeah.
a grayscale right now.
Yeah, Mike really dressed it up for you guys tonight. He probably wanted to.
I usually have my robe on.
Yeah, it's very nice. I love what you've done with the place, Mike. All right, so now here, final thing. I know we cannot Frank Miller-esque. That's a nice compliment.
It's a huge compliment.
Yeah. Oh, you. I thought he meant me.
With that green shirt.
The green shirt. That's very Frank Miller. You did note you got some onomatopoeia sound effects and things of that nature. But you noted that you also had an opinion and a selection on your letter and your lettering style. What were you going for, Duane?
Again, referencing Four Kids on the Walk into a Bank, what I loved was how much they utilize onomatopoeia and sound effect, and so Rob had actually worked with Ahmed on a short part of an anthology, right? Ahmed, yeah. And so, that's key to me, was someone Ahmed liked to work with. My first book, Better Place, Sean Daly was the artist, and he did everything. He lettered as well. So this was my first time working with a letter, and so I didn't know a lot of letterers. And so I looked at some portfolios, and Ahmed had worked with Rob, and I looked at what he did, and Rob, in a lot of his sample stuff, took a lot of chances with this stuff. He actually recently just won an award for a comic he did that was just lettering. There was no, and that sort of showcased just how diverse a letterer he is, like what he can do, and he's just great. So I asked for that, and within the script, I tell him, if you see a spot where you think something like that could go, and it's not, don't just put it there. And it gets utilized a lot throughout the whole thing. And this is, again, the stage often where this is now where I'll look at it and go, you know what, this could use a little chutzpah here, a little
chutzpah
here,
zhuzh.
Little let's zhuzh it up with a or something, you know.
Now, Duane, not to embarrass you or put you on the spot, how much of your acting as a professional actor informs the collaboration and the work and that freedom to decide?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because comics are when you come from one background, you start to sort of place people into those positions. Like I said, like the artist is a DOP and the editor is more like a producer, and I start to do that. And as an actor, I think the writing aspect, I mean, first of all, I was always a writer, and then I went to theater school because I couldn't afford film school. And I'm serious. I couldn't afford it. And
which software is free? I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Does Keltex, is that still around? And so I went to theater school, fell in love with it, started acting, but then always was making independent films and writing films and script doctoring. So I always felt like I was a writer. But in particular, what acting brought for me was ear for dialogue, and being able to identify the way things are said, not the way things are written. In comics, obviously, there is going to be an aspect of that, but I do, like with people like Bendis, who really sort of honed in on that. This is the way people actually talk. And that seemed to be the start of that wave of comics where dialogue was a lot more natural. And that, I think, as an actor, and as an actor who, quite frankly, for some things I rewrite my stuff because it's not to say the writer didn't do a good job. This is just more truthful, me saying it the way I would say it.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you're getting a more genuine output from me as the character. And so I try to bring that sense of dialogue to my comic writing.
Wow.
Where so I can get a little too picky. I mean, you guys may do the same. Is like a dash here. You know what? He's going to repeat this word here. I can get a little caught up in that. And then the good thing about comics is there's a limited amount of space, and so it actually helps me become a better writer because it forces me to be more economical.
Duane, I can assure you that Mike and I obsess about punctuation, every single word. We bicker over, Mike and I write a lot together. We bicker over everything. There's nothing goes unbickered. All right, guys. How many rewrites before the final draft, Duane?
It depends what you count. I mean, if I was to look at my Dropbox, it's actually from to finished. It's about 5. I'd say average 4 to 5 drafts. But lots of drafts. No, say zoinks. Though I will say you're missing the N. I think it's zoinks. Technically, it's zoinks.
Yes,
there you go.
Yeah, nobody says zoinks.
Yeah, no, there's an N. There's an N in that.
Duane writes a lot of dog dialogue, so he does know.
Exactly. Reggie, things like that. You gotta.
Well, that was good. All right, so wrap it up. We're almost out of time here. Tell us about the book. Tell us where they can get it, and then we're going to get on to our final question for you.
You can get it in, like you said, a month or so. I think it's available for pre-order now. It's, I think, a fun little. It's, I miss the comics of Kevin Maguire's Justice League, like just funny stuff. I wasn't seeing enough funny stuff in comics, so I tried to do something funny, and I hired a really funny artist to do it with me. And I think we made a really fun book, and I hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, let's give him a round of applause on
that. Here's a bad Australian joke.
Go ahead, Mike. Read it out.
With so many drafts, you might need to close the window.
That was more of a.
He's our Aussie, so
more of a.
That was terrible, but that's what I do.
That was the best you got. But you know what? The best it has to be good. All right, guys. This is the moment in the show where we ask all of our guests one piece of advice that you wish you had received earlier in your career. And what we're going to do, Duane, is now remember, we prize a succinct answer.
Yes.
And I will read the question and then prompt you, and then Mike will furiously edit it into a clip later on. So let's get started. Duane, what is one piece of advice that you wish you had received earlier in your career?
That even though you can't draw, you can make comics. You just need to find the right collaborators to help you make them.
That is a good piece of advice. A good Zen piece of advice to help balance out all the ideas in your head. Ahmed, we're going to do the same thing. Okay, here we go. Ahmed, what is one piece of advice that you wish you had received earlier in your career?
Don't wait. If you want to make comics, start doing them now, because I spent a lot of time just waiting for something right to happen, or just letting other things get in the way. And I've always wanted to make comics. So if you want to start making comics, don't wait for anything. Just pick a pencil or an iPad or whatever, and start drawing a short story, one-page story, put it out there, and things are gonna start rolling. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
That's good, huh? All right, guys. You see the applause. We just have them stop immediately. Guys, thank you so much. We wish you the best of luck. We understand that Dark Horse will be dropping some trailers. There'll be some preview pages. I'm sure you guys will be on all the late night talk shows.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for joining us. Thank you for allowing us to be among the first to have you on the show, and for revealing the process. Mike, you have anything that is waiting in the green room for our guests to eat and drink, because we're going to put them in the green room for a little bit?
We have a shrimp cocktail and chickpeas.
I'm allergic to shrimp, but thank you.
Okay.
Is there an alternative, Mike, for it?
Well, it's really just the chickpeas, but we'll see if we can slide in some water or something for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And an EpiPen.
Yeah, exactly.
And an EpiPen. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You guys were great guests. All right, there we go. Well, that was fun, Mike.
Yeah, they know what you're doing. I'm waiting to see when this comes out.
They do a lot of work. Ahmed draws the same thing it's like 4 times. Like you pencil it, then you draw, you sketch it, then you pencil it, then you ink it, then you color it, then
Yes.
Yeah, but that's a lot of work. Yeah, I mean,
You just kick
Wait,
them out.
you get off easy. You just write a script, you turn it in. You're like,
Do something with this.
do something with this. Duane's, and I don't believe Duane. I think he does like one draft and then just makes it version 5.
Just changes like a dash or something.
He just puts V5. He's like V5, and you're like, good enough. Make Ahmed feel like he was doing it. Hey guys, thank you everybody for joining us. We're always so happy to have you guys here. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We are here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night, and we will see you guys all next Tuesday. Good night, everybody.